Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. I'm really sorry for the delay on this book review. It's been a little bit of a hectic week. I talked about this in a previous video. I tried to get my review up yesterday. It just had some weird problems. And so I re-recorded the review, and now I'm going to upload the review just for you. And hopefully you're watching this, hopefully you're having a good time, and hopefully you can hear the audio on this thing, because I'm having a lot of trouble with everything I work on. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about a book that I recently praised in one of my recent videos announcing like my Q&A and stuff I'm going to be doing for the 750 subscriber celebration here on my channel. It is growing tremendously fast, and I really wanted to, in the next couple of weeks, for people who don't know, I'm going to be going on my honeymoon, I'm going to get married and all that kind of stuff. So for the next couple of weeks I want to cover the Say Cheese and Die series, and this week, or this past week, I was reading the original book, and this is my only ever copy until my fiance bought me a copy a couple of years back when I started getting into Goosebumps again for the first time in many years. This is my copy from when I was a kid. I talk a lot on this channel. Excuse me, I talk a lot on this channel about when I was a kid. I had a skating rink birthday party, and that's when I got a lot of Goosebumps books. That was around the time I got my first Goosebumps book I pretty much ever read. I think it was the original Night of the Living Dead, or Dummy, excuse me. I think Dummy was the first book I ever read out of any Goosebumps book ever, because of how much I loved Night of the Living Dummy 3, the TV episode, which I also think is my first thing I ever watched from Hollywood Video of Goosebumps. I never had the exposure to the original show because I was too young. But anyway, this first book that I'm going to review here from this trilogy, because there are 3 of these Say Cheese and Die books, is Say Cheese and Die. This is the reissue cover. This is the one that I got at my skating rink birthday party I always talk about. And here's the copy that my fiance got me a few years ago with the reissue cover, the newest reissue cover. I do not have a copy of the original book with the original cover set and all that stuff, the number on the side. I don't have that, but I do want to buy a copy at some point just because I loved this book. If you've not read Say Cheese and Die, which mind you, I've never read this. I think I may have read it, or at least half of it at one point, many years ago when I was younger. This concept comes across so much like a Twilight Zone episode. It probably is a Twilight Zone episode for all I know, of the original black and white Rod Serling show that I love so much, not the new Jordan Peele garbage. Anyway, this story was extremely dark. It was so dark, and it was so focused on like death and just crazy concepts and weird situations. Say Cheese and Die basically focuses on a young man named Greg who has a group of friends. They decide to break into an abandoned house in the neighborhood called the Kaufman House that may or may not be haunted by a lot of urban legend kind of floating around the town. There's also a homeless man nicknamed Spidey that kind of walks around the neighborhood. He's kind of just a creepy, lanky type of dude, really tall, kind of an older guy. And people are kind of afraid of him. They think he might be living in that Kaufman house. But a bunch of kids, Greg and his friends, like 4 or 5 different kids, all decide to break into the Kaufman house. And they go looking around, and one of them ends up in the basement. Greg goes down there as well. And he ends up moving a vise, like the vise you have on the side of workbenches to hold things in place while you drill holes in them or cut them up or anything like that. And he messes with the vise, and a little trap door opens near the work table, and he goes in there and he finds a camera, and he grabs this out. Now, there's a recent horror movie that came out that I have not seen yet. A lot of people like myself were excited to see the film. It's called Polaroid. Polaroid, from what I understand, is completely a genuine ripoff of this story to the very T. But this feels like a Twilight Zone type of story, so I'm kind of cool with adults stealing this idea from R.L. Stine and doing a horror film, because it could be a really good movie. And I've heard that the TV episode holds up really well. I've seen it one time, a long time ago. Ryan Gosling stars as the main character, Greg, who finds the camera. So I would recommend the episode. I think the episode was fantastic from what I saw of it. I have not rewatched it yet. I'm going to do that tomorrow night and have a review here for you, hopefully, God willing. But this story mostly focuses on Greg with this weird little camera. Now, the thing is, the difference between this and the TV episode, the camera's just kind of a basic camera. You know, it puts out the snapshots and stuff. It's kind of I forgot what it's called, but it's one of the older cameras that actually put out Polaroids. And you have the little camera piece, you know, you flap the little picture around in the air and stuff, and the light, it slowly comes to fruition where you can actually see the thing. Anyway, I'm sorry if I'm being weird tonight. It's kind of weird. I have like a weird headache and stuff. That's why I feel like a little different and odd tonight. Anyway, he gets the picture, the Polaroid, out of the camera after he takes a picture of he and his friends, and an accident happens. One of his friends almost falls to his death and almost pretty much essentially breaks an ankle. And I'm going to tell you, man, this story, Say Cheese and Die, I don't know about the sequel. I don't know about the 3rd book from Horrorland. I'm going to tell you right now, this book has so many dark, eerie, crazy, atmospheric moments to it. it really is something I'd recommend reading during the fall. You know, we're in September right now. October's coming up next month. I would really recommend reading this first book in like the fall, like September, October, that kind of time period. The atmosphere in this book, not that it takes place during the fall as far as I remember, it just feels like that kind of time period story. It just feels really fitting to that. I loved this book. I thought it was so good. The only flaw in the entire book that I ever saw at all was that at one point, the story changed from third person, which the whole book is written in the weirdest possible way. It changes to a first person story, and then immediately in the same chapter goes back to a third person perspective. Why? Why was that never caught? And I don't know if in the newest reissue if that was caught or not. I don't know. I haven't checked, but I kind of want to check, but I haven't checked, and it was weird when I read that, and I had to reread it a couple of times to realize what was happening there, because it just was so, you know, kind of shows how fast these things were being produced back in the day. You had like a new Goosebumps book every month, so these things were being rushed out, and that's kind of one of the mistakes that gets caught every once in a while. Not very commonly. There's like one Give Yourself Goosebumps book I found a flaw in recently that I talked about on my channel. But other than that, you don't really find a lot of those kinds of flaws. You don't really find many typos or anything in Goosebumps books, from my experience personally. And anyway, but anyway, Greg, he had a situation where when he takes cameras, or I can't even talk, excuse me, I'm so off tonight. When he takes pictures with the camera, stuff happens. And it kind of predicts things that may or may not happen in the nearby future. Possibly a day ahead, we don't really know. That's kind of doing stuff like that. It's a very weird, again, Twilight Zone type of concept, and I love it. I think it is so good, and the way they execute this, the way Stein, or whoever wrote this book, writes this book, it's just so enveloping. It really grabs you. It's really a great book. It's one of the best Goosebumps books I think I've ever read in my life. I really dig this. I think it's such a dark, creepy story that really gets under your skin. There's one scene involving a car that really, really surprised me that was in this book. I remember it from the TV episode because I saw the TV episode, as far as I know, before I ever read this book at all. And it surprised me it was in the TV episode. I didn't know for sure if it was an adaptation of something from the book, but apparently it was. And this is really good. I really recommend this. I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. It's really enjoyable. The ending is extremely dark. I mean, extremely shockingly dark. I could see why a lot of people my age who grew up on these books would be afraid of this, because it was a scary ending, man. It had some creepy stuff. I finished reading it, yesterday or whatever, and it really got to me. It just really is an eerie story that I did not expect to come out of Goosebumps. Very much like when I read Goosebumps Wanted the Haunted Mask, which is a relatively newer book compared to this. It had gore and violence and some of the scary stuff I've ever seen in that Haunted Mask book. It's the fourth of that series, and I would say it's the scariest in my opinion. I've done reviews on that as well, in case you want to check out those videos. For all the Haunted Mask books, I reviewed them last Halloween. But this book, this particular book, I would say, Say Cheese and Die, is just extremely horrific. I mean, just surprisingly horrific. Anyway, have you read Say Cheese and Die? What do you think about this book? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What do you think about it? I'm really surprised it took me this long to read this. The episode was good back in the day. I like how in here it's a basic camera, unlike in the episode adaptation. It's like this weird scientific beeping computer thing. It looks like something off Bible Man. It's a really ugly camera in the TV episode. But Ryan Gosling's in it. He was good back then. He's great now. One of my favorite actors of all time. Great, talented guy. The book itself, fantastic. I could not possibly recommend this enough to you if you haven't read it. It's such a great start for Goosebumps. If you've never read Goosebumps at all, this is a great example of a book you could jump into. It has a fantastic premise of this whole idea of this camera. It could really get you into Goosebumps. I think it's so good, but don't expect every book, if you read this first, out of any book that you ever pick out to really get into Goosebumps, don't expect every book to be as dark as this one, because many of them are not. But this is a great one. I love it. I love the cover with the skeletons and stuff. Really good book. Some crazy, I wouldn't call them twists, but actual things that happen, events, whatever, in this book. Really crazy stuff. Really a lot of stuff that I would not expect to be in Goosebumps is how realistic and traumatic it could be. Anyway, if I had to rate Say Cheese and Die on a 5-star basis, I would easily, hands down, as much as I've been given a lot of positive reviews here lately, I would easily give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved this book. It was so good. I recommend it highly, dude. I have to go into my list of books that I'm ranking right now for every book that I've read, and so on and so on. The classic series, all these ranking lists that I have saved on my phone and my notepad. I'm gonna have to go in and really evaluate what I think with how much I loved this book. But yeah, I plan on buying an original copy with the original cover because it was a great book. It was such a good read, dude. If you haven't read this, you're really missing out. It's a great one. Seriously. What did you think about Say Cheese and Die? Put your thoughts in comments down below. Again, I'm sorry for the really weird type of review, my weird attitude tonight. It's just a weird day. I don't know. It's Labor Day, or it was, and now it's not, and it's weird. I don't know. I have a 4-day week. I'm not used to that. Doesn't happen often. Yeah. Anyway, I'll try to get that review out for you guys tomorrow night for the episode. I'm really excited to rewatch that. Really pumped. Anyway, thank you for watching again. God bless you guys, and goodbye.